Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright, so as I said in the last video that I recorded, which you might have seen before this one, we've got some Julie Kelly drops to get through. I thought I was going to be able to do the whole thing in one video, but it's been a week of massive, possible case spiking bombshells, one after another. A new motion has been filed. Trump's legal defense in the documents case currently happening in Florida just pushed forward a motion to dismiss the trial on a claim of selective prosecution as well as vindictive prosecution. February 22nd, 2024, President Trump filed under seal 3 pretrial motions via email to the court and special counsel's office. Number 1, motion to dismiss the superseding indictment based on selective and vindictive persecution. Number 2, motion to dismiss the superseding indictment, and in the alternative, to suppress the 15 boxes based on prosecutorial misconduct resulting in due process violations, impermissible pre-indictment delay, and grand jury abuses. And number 3, motion to A, suppress evidence seized during the raid at Mar-a-Lago and obtained in violation of President Trump's attorney-client privilege, and B, dismiss the superseding indictment based on prejudice from this privilege violation. So I'm sure some people are rolling their eyes going, yeah, well, of course Trump's going to be attempting to get these charges dismissed through whatever means necessary. It doesn't mean that there's actual grounds to dismiss this case. Well, on the contrary, my imaginary friend, since Trump's legal team filed these motions back in February, Judge Aileen Cannon has been releasing all sorts of documents and, most importantly, unredacting them. And boy, have we found some very, very interesting things. Alright, so let's start off with a familiar name. Let's start off with Walt Nauta. That's this guy. Waltine Tor Nauta Jr. is an American valet and bodyman to former US President Donald Trump. He is a defendant in a criminal case over violations of the Espionage Act and related offenses. While a petty officer in the United States Navy, he was Trump's valet at the White House. So essentially, it's one of Donald Trump's confidants, a man who's worked for him for a very long time, and while he got wrapped up in Jack Smith's little case here, he's being charged with various violations of the Espionage Act, but now we're learning all kinds of interesting little tidbits that Jack Smith's DOJ and the FBI were essentially engaged in, let's call it, strong-arm tactics, attempting to force Mr. Walt Nauta into cooperating, or in other words, coercing him to flip on the former president. Holy S, Julie Kelly writes, newly unredacted FBI interview between FBI and unidentified Mar-a-Lago employee from January 2023 shows agents trying to get information about the personal life of Walt Nauta, Trump's close personal aide that the DOJ wanted to flip. Unidentified FBI agent says, alright, because we've noticed that this has caused a lot of stress for different people, so we just didn't know. Okay, let's see. So you said Walt still works at the 45 office. Who is Walt close to? Unidentified Trump aide then says, like, at work? FBI agent then responds, at work, personal life, I want to ask everything. The person then responds, me, because. The rest is indiscernible. The FBI agent responds, then continues by saying, who is person 56? That's redacted information. The Trump aide then responds, I've never heard of that name. FBI agent then responds, okay, well, person 56, not a Mar-a-Lago employee. That rings a bell. Trump aide then responds, The FBI agent then pushes and says, okay, does Walt have is he seeing someone? Person then responds, not to my knowledge. FBI agent then says, okay, was he seeing somebody within the last year? Person responds, not to my knowledge. What do you think that was? Well, that was a fishing operation attempting to know everything about this guy. Whether we can compromise him, who's he seeing, who's he dating, what kind of pressure can we put on this guy to get him to flip? There's more information here. FBI then pries for information about Nauta's state of mind, perhaps to determine if the ongoing investigation was wearing on him personally, so DOJ's degenerate individual Jay Bratt could try to coerce him into flipping on Trump. FBI agent says that you, I guess, whatever you're allowing. Mr. Irving responds, yeah, I mean, can we just skip the past? I mean, you're asking Trump's aide to speculate about how he's doing, and I'm not even sure what how he's doing means, really, what that means. FBI agent then responds, all right, I guess, does he seem like normal? Does he seem stressed? Does he seem depressed? FBI agent number 21A here is essentially trying to find out if Walt Nauta is cracking under the pressure as he digs in for personal information that he could possibly use against him. But trust me, it gets worse. Motions unsealed last night in classified docs case provide further proof of special counsel Jack Smith's bullying tactics against Walt Nauta, Trump's personal aide, and his attorney Stanley Woodward. In seeking to establish that he is subject to vindictive prosecution, Mr. Nauta must first demonstrate that there was objective evidence that the SCO acted with genuine animus towards Mr. Nada. At their May 9th, 2023 informal meeting, whose invitation was posited to Mr. Woodward as a coffee chat, Mr. Raskin nevertheless represented to Mr. Woodward that the prosecution would not accept anything less than Mr. Nada's full cooperation in the investigation. In particular, Mr. Raskin declined any such proposition to Jay Brett, who's Jack Smith's lead henchman, had threatened Woodward with nixing his judicial application if he didn't get Nada to flip. Upon Mr. Woodward's arrival at Main Justice, he was led to a conference room where Mr. Brett awaited with what appeared to be a folder containing information about Mr. Woodward. Mr. Brett thereupon told Mr. Woodward he didn't consider him to be a Trump lawyer, and he further said that he was aware that Mr. Woodward had been recommended to President Biden for an appointment to the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Mr. Brett followed up with the words to the effect, "I wouldn't want you to do anything to mess that up." A veiled threat. Comply with us, work with us to get Donald Trump, don't be a quote Trump lawyer, and you might get that job promotion that you've been looking for that happens to come at Joe Biden's discretion. Holy frickin' moly. Jay Brett also back in June of 2022 told Walt Nada that as a recently retired naval officer, he quote is sworn to testimony to obey the grand jury, and your obligation is to obey this grand jury. Do you understand that? Yes. They were trying to profile this guy, trying to dig any dirt, trying to find out if he was involved in any office romances. They used coercive language like it's your obligation as a formal naval officer to quote, obey the grand jury, and on top of all of it, they essentially threatened his lawyer with the potential loss of a judge appointment, essentially if he didn't act right and steer his client in the direction that they were looking for him to be headed in. And now we're running out of time here, but on top of all of it, we're also learning that the White House was deeply connected to the entire prosecution effort since day one. Email from NARA lawyer Gary Stern suggests a White House meeting with Ronald Klain and Dana Remus in September of 2021 before meeting with Biden's deputy counsel Jonathan Su on Trump's quote, missing records. I mean, would you look at that? Then we learn that David Ferrero, who was the national archivist of NARA, again in September of 2021, visited the White House twice on 2 occasions, as you can see from the White House visitor log right over here, visiting with who? With Dana Remus. And so on top of all of it, we're learning that there was clear and obvious bias throughout this entire process. There's an obvious incentive for the White House to launch an investigation and engage in the prosecution of their top political opponent. You know, the guy that just happens to be beating them in the polls, the guy that clearly they want so desperately to avoid. This is a smoking gun. Rather, I think it's multiple smoking guns. It's a smoking, multi-barreled cannon. The White House was involved, and there was obvious, horrible prosecutorial misconduct in the early days of this investigation in their attempts to get Walt Nada, a longtime Trump friend and employee, to flip. It's all now clear as day, written for you to see, and of course written for you to perceive. This whole thing is exactly how Trump says it. It's a frickin' witch hunt. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.